Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another round of the UK Sim Racing Community GT3 League Season 7, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 7 of the 12th round calendar, and we're here in Australia for Sandown Raceway. That's right, it is the case that our drivers have made their way all the way from continental Europe last time out, where they were at Spa-Francorchamps, to Australia. They're down under near Melbourne, and it is the case we are at the circuit that is known to be the home of horsepower. And indeed, you can see it on the signage there underneath the commentary booth where I currently sit. It is the case that this circuit, likened to a pair of drag strips separated by a group of corners, it is the case that we are looking at one of the lowest, that's better, one of the lowest lap times on the calendar here, with the laps just being over a minute in length. And we have got some cracking racing ahead here as our drivers get ready to go racing tonight. It is the case, of course, that this series is sponsored by Swelio Amida Sim Racing Coaching, and more on our sponsor in a brief moment. The racing at this circuit, typically seen in the real world to involve V8 supercars. It is the case that we exchange V8 supercars for GT3s, but whilst they may not all be powered by V8s, you can imagine that our drivers will be gunning and running for the best possible lap times in qualifying. The action will come fast, it will be furious, and on top of that as well, there'll be a huge amount of risk versus reward in terms of overtakes down the straights and also balancing the car through the corners that connect those straights. Now, the broadcast tonight is being brought to you as a post-race broadcast for your viewing pleasure. It is the case that the racing itself occurred as of yesterday evening on Sunday the 31st of July, but we're bringing you all the racing action as if it were live tonight as of Monday the 1st of August 2022, and it is the case that you can tune in tonight via the official UK Sim Racing Twitch channel. So if you go to twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing, you can tune in there. And if it is the case that you're tuning in as a driver who took part last night, of course we do ask you to avoid giving away any spoilers, just to make sure that it doesn't ruin it for those who have not found out what exactly happens over the course of qualifying or the race. And indeed, I, as your host and commentator, do not know what happens. This is completely raw to me, and therefore it is the case we'll try and give you the best possible live experience as if it were live. And who am I? Well, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141, depending on what media you follow me on, and it is the case that I'll be covering all of the rounds of this season. And indeed, as the series makes its way into its second half now, we have still got an absolutely action-packed season ahead. Speaking of which, let's take a look at it. It was the case, of course, last time out, and looking at the left-hand side here of our image, it is the case that we wrapped up the first half of the season at Spa-Francorchamps a week ago, and what a round that was. It was the case the venerable endurance circuit, which has recently played host to the 24 Hours of Spa, as hosted by Total Energies. It is the case we saw history made there by Iron Dames, of course, the first all-female driver team to take the win within their respective class, and it is indeed the case that whilst we didn't perhaps see history being made too much at Spa-Francorchamps in our round number 6, there was still plenty of battles up and down the field, and indeed a major calamity befalling some drivers on the Kemmel Straight really shook up the momentum. Prior to that, we were of course in Canada for Charles Villeneuve back in round number 5, and before that it was the case that our series was making its way across the North American continent with a visit to Watkins Glen in the state of New York for round number 4, and our first 3 rounds, of course, working backwards. Round number 3 was in Japan at Fuji Speedway, it was Long Beach before that, and then it was the Hockenheimring that kicked everything off. We kicked everything off back in Germany back on the 19th of June. But looking ahead, of course, we're at Sandown today, and then next week we'll be heading to the Hungaroring, so making our way back from Australia to continental Europe for the Hungarian circuit, before then making our way back to Japan for round number 9, and Suzuka will await our drivers. And it is the case that whilst it's not the final round on the calendar, Suzuka is known for being a circuit that normally features towards the end of most racing calendars, and it is the case that by being towards the end, it is a circuit that sees a lot of drama in championship campaigns, indeed over the years, and one of the most memorable races would of course be in the battle between Alain Prost and also Ayrton Senna, where it was the case the championship one year went the way of Ayrton Senna, and the year before it went the way of Alain Prost. And it is the case that Suzuka definitely throws a spanner into the works of any solid championship campaign, and in our final 3 rounds we'll see 2 of those rounds being feature race rounds worth double points, with the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit for round number 10 on the 21st of August, then Mid-Ohio and Road Atlanta being our season finale, and that will be a feature race round worth double points, of course, a roller coaster ride of a circuit, and what a way to wrap up the season with the roller coaster ride that is the risk versus reward, with double points on the line at Road Atlanta, and we bring the curtain down in terms of the actual driving on the 4th of September, but all the racing action will be brought to you as if it were live on the 5th of September. That is the case, of course, focusing on our circuit for today. We're at the Sandown International Motor Raceway, located in the suburb of Springvale, within the confines of the city of Melbourne in the state of Victoria in Australia. This circuit looks pretty simple when you look at it. The circuit map provided to us by Will Pittinger from wikipedia.org, and thank you to Will. It is the case that this circuit falls just shy of 2 miles in length, or just over 3 kilometres. It is a circuit which, as we said previously, is considered to be 2 drag strips separated by a bundle of corners. Indeed, you can see from here 13 corners, and it's the run from the start finish line all the way down towards turn number 1, where the run from turn 1 to turn 4 is a quick sequence of corners before now drivers make their way onto the back straight, which is a high speed full throttle run all the way out of turn number 4 up to turn number 9. And whilst it does look as though turns 6 through to 8 are a number of kinks, I can assure you our drivers will be trying to go through turns 6 through to 8 fully flat out. It is the case they will not want to back out and only go on the brakes as late as possible when battling the way into turn number 9, before we have the run down towards turns 11 and 12, and then we go through the kink of 13 to go through it all again. And indeed, this circuit, if this image gives you a feel, there is the case it is a very high-paced circuit, a high-speed circuit, where you are going to see very shortly when we cut to our drivers just how fast it is around here, starting off, of course, with our qualifying session. But before we get there, of course, it's time just to cut away to our sponsor for this series, and that is Suelio Almeida Sim Racing Coaching. Let's hear from Suelio Almeida himself.
Hello guys, my name is Suelio Almeida. I am a multi-champion sim racer and professional racing coach with more than 1,300 hours of experience so far. My background is a little bit odd. I'm actually a master in piano, in classical piano. I have more than 16 years and more than 10 international and national prizes in piano competitions and music competitions. With my musical background and all experience about technique development, I brought these skills to sim racing and developed many new methods and many new ways to efficiently practice and find time in racing as well. Because of that background, I did very well since my very first coaching session that I started because I had to pay my tuition here in Montreal doing my master's degree at the University of Montreal in piano. This is the rig that I had when I started my first coaching sessions 2.5 years ago. By that time, I was already within the 0.38% top drivers in the world in iRacing. Back then, I was already able to claim my first overall season in Formula 3 in iRacing, which is a very difficult achievement as I was competing with former World Championship drivers. I ended up collecting many other championships as well. In 2021, I was able to claim the Porsche Esports Spring Challenge Canada Championship title,
Suelio Almeida in the number 3, your champions,
which actually put me in a real Porsche 911 on a real track for the first time in my life. And the key for that, guys, was proper practice, efficient practice. I really used my hours to always learn something new. Every time I was going to practice, I was really looking for new information, external information, opinions from teammates, from friends. I did coaching sessions. I really researched. I read books about setups. I read articles, videos about racing techniques and how to develop them. And I really wanted to, always grow, never hit a plateau. I really wanted to always learn something. And nowadays, my passion is teaching. After having worked for more than 1,300 sessions, coaching sessions, each session being 1 hour, and seeing all the development on students going from 2,000 rating to 5,000 rating, and students who were having problems with anxiety or not being able to learn, not being able to improve, really conquering their races, getting their first wins, and really improving and becoming more confident and happier, I really figured out that that was my fulfilling mission. I really wanted to teach more, and I was gathering information. I was gathering and understanding the patterns of the technique and how we learn faster, how we develop our technique faster. I was even able to apply all that to my own technique. With my coaching sessions, I started learning how to coach myself, and that is what this course is about.
So hearing there from Swelio Meda himself, and why should you listen to Swelio Meda here, you ask? Well, it is the case that he's a multi-champion in numerous overall official series and leagues on iRacing, including but not limited to the 2021 Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada competition. And it is the case, working with him will see you take your iRacing driving, whether it's one lap pace or in terms of overall consistency, to the next level. And in terms of what Swelio Meda's bringing to the series in terms of sponsorship, it is the case that he's contributing to the prize pool for this series, where the winner of each class shall win a pass to Swelio's motor racing checklist course. Indeed, one of the ultimate fundamentals if you're looking to take your iRacing driving to the next level. Indeed, a number of things you can take into real-world driving as well if you do participate in track days. But as we look down to the circuit, let's take you through our schedule for tonight in this round number 7. Times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. In just under 4 minutes time, we'll be kicking off the qualifying session. Of course, that will be the lone qualifying session where all of our drivers take to an isolated instance of the track where they have nobody else out on circuit but themselves, and they have 4 laps to set a time, 4 flying laps plus an out lap. And it is the case we'll be seeing the perspective of Carl McGurk when he does take to the circuit, the gold class driver, and we'll get to see how he tackles the circuit in the Mercedes AMG 2020 Evo machine. And that session will last about 10 minutes. It may be a little bit quicker given the fact the shortness of laps around here, but we'll give you the insights of what you need to know about how to achieve a strong lap around the Sandown International Motor Raceway circuit. And then we'll be making our way to the sprint race. 40 minutes of racing, and indeed it is going to feel like a sprint here given how quick the lap is. And in that 40 minutes we're likely to see a pit stop within there, but it will be all in, no holds barred action from start to finish. And well, who will be coming out on top by the end, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be highly unpredictable. However, speaking of something which is predictable, and it's not to demean him in any way, it is the case we do see Jonathan Hitchin here currently holding the fastest lap time in this practice session. You'll see that Carl McGurk there stands at the top of the standings for a lap that is 50 seconds at 0.265. What we can tell you is the case with the limitations of an iRacing replay file. The replay file does not differentiate between laps that are valid and invalid, and it is the case I think Carl McGurk decided to take a bit of a rallycross line or simply cut in the circuit at one point, and it is the case that we should look to P2 driver Jonathan Hitchin there and the Platinum driver having achieved so far a 106.08, and that gives you an idea. The fastest laps we can expect in qualifying will be 106s, perhaps even 105s depending on how the circuit rubbers in and that track temperature. But it is the case that Hitchin continues to be the driver to beat in terms of that pace, and not just in the race but also in qualifying. In the McLaren MP4 12C, he'll have to go some today with that V8 bi-turbo in order to hold on to the lead. Last time, of course, we saw at Spa-Francorchamps he used strategy to his advantage versus the likes of Sam Congreve, but you can imagine here today the BMWs and also the Mercedes will really try to be in their element. And speaking of being in their element, we do have a couple of new drivers I should say, who are joined today, and in particular you won't see him at the moment, but it is the case he is down there on circuit. We do have a couple of glitch liveries by the looks of things, and we'll get those fixed when we take to the grid. But we do have Oliver Furnell taking to the circuit today. He's joined us in the Platinum class, and we also see here David Larson, the Symphony Esports driver, currently our championship leader in the silver class. And well, the Ferrari driver, after a difficult run of form in the last couple of rounds, can he turn things around here today after a loss of championship momentum has really hurt him? It must be said for David Larson. But as we do wait to go racing a minute to go before the checkered flag on this final warm-up practice session is complete and we head to qualifying, we take a look to the Twitch chat, of course, and we do say hello to all of you in the Twitch chat. And well, we go from the top to bottom there. We've got Billy Bob _55 Budget Racing Noob. We've also got El Neo, we've got Alfie, well I believe that is Ali F1 boy I should say, almost said Alfie boy there, but good evening to you guys. Also Mr. Min 87 and Nathaniel Racing. We've also got there Jonathan Hitchens saying hello. We also say hello, I do believe, to 306 Rally, and also first time chat from a viewer here, Basic Ollie tuning in. And well, my goodness, I must admit it is great to see Basic Ollie tuning in. And well, if you're wondering, does Basic Ollie line up perhaps with Oliver Furnell? Well, you've probably guessed it right, it is the case. Basic Ollie making his debut as of tonight, and well, a lot of pressure of course on Ollie in the fact that many of our drivers will know him of course from his brilliant content creation on YouTube and indeed his live streams, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on here today. No pressure for him whatsoever, as we also say hello to Sal G, and we also say thank you to N8F66 for subscribing at tier 1, and well, continuing on a 2-month streak there in terms of subscribing to the channel. And if you do have a Twitch Prime subscription, then feel free to subscribe to the channel today, and there will be the case that you're able to stay up to date with with all the latest activity with UK Sim Racing, and indeed you can stay tuned in. And on top of that as well, it is the case as we get ready to go qualifying here and we do look for Carl McGurk. It is one of those set cases whereby as we wait for McGurk to take to the circuit, he will do it in a brief moment. We're just waiting for him to ready on the car up here. We do have our official website as well, which is, of course, uksimracing.com. And if you do go to our website, you'll notice that we are affiliated with multiple sim racing companies and real-world motorsporting companies, including Swilly Automated Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, and more recently, Demon Tweaks. It is the case we've recently become affiliated with them. And by making purchases through our affiliate links on our website, it is the case that you can get discounts on our affiliates, and in return, we get a kickback from your purchases, which we can use to fund future series. Keep in mind, of course, we at UK Sim Racing, we're not here for profit. We're a non-profit organisation, and every penny we make goes back into the series that we host, where it's the organisation, the prize pools, you name it, every penny is reinvested. But speaking of reinvesting right now, Carl McGurk, of course, with that switch to the Mercedes, he'll be thinking about has he invested his choices wisely as he makes his way out of the pit lane here for his warm-up lap. And well, as he rolls his way on down right now, we are expecting that Mercedes with its V8 beast of an engine to really be quick around here and set the pace alight. But it is the case, it'll be a quiet circuit in this qualifying session, a very peaceful circuit for the Triple Eight driver. But I can assure you, when we do go racing with 30 plus drivers, I think we've got 31 drivers in total here today expected to take to the grid, it is going to be anything but quiet here at the home of horsepower. And as McGurk rolls his way on through, some of the key things you may have already noticed from the cameras here, the exterior cameras, it is the case that whilst we have a lot of straights and also connected corners, it is also the case that the walls are very close. And if you haven't tuned into V8 Supercar, that is really a theme of Australian circuits. It seems as though the walls are ever close, and indeed there are a lot of sections where you can really deploy the power. If you want to describe a power circuit, you could just use the word Sandown and everybody would give you a thumbs up on that. It is the case that this circuit really is most of the time about foot to the floor. But as we see him McGurk here roll his way down through turn 6 into 9, you can see there the back and forth, the concertina of corners. It is the case that it's going to be coming down at full throttle in a minute, and he'll be looking to balance the car on through. But right now McGurk getting himself set up by coming down into turns 11 and 12, and as he makes his way through turn number 12, let's jump on board here with McGurk as he takes us around for a first flying lap of his session. Down through the kink of 13 and across the timeline, he charges down towards turn number 1 here, building up the speed as much as rapidly possible as he heads on down. And as we clear the screen of data, he breaks his way down into turn number 1, coming all the way down to 3rd gear, just avoiding the apex curve there so high it would move the car around. But he rolls his way up into turn number 2 for the right hand kink before heading into the left-hander, going over those curves and up into turn number 4, 2nd gear, and immediately stamps the throttle down, using the preload differential to push the car through the corner. And now it's the charge up towards turns 6 through to 9, going through the kink of 5, heading up the hill, and McGurk completely on the ball now as he heads towards what is turn number 6. You can see going up to the highest point on the circuit, and that's into left-hander. Completely flat out, now making his way straight line between 7 and 8 and braking on the apex of 8 to set up the car for 9, coming down to 2nd gear and now heading on through. You can see the traction control light there lighting up as he makes his way through the kink of 10 and now braking his way down into 11, coming down to 2nd gear and then heading into turn number 12 and rolling the car way through and heading up towards 13, flat out here to the line. And from Carl McGurk, that is going to be quite a fast lap. It's a 106.449, and indeed that lap is very short, as I think you will agree, and with it being one of the shortest on the calendar, he'll have 3 more to go as we now look to the exterior cams here. But it is the case that in order to be able to get a good lap around here, you have to have confidence. You've got to really believe in the grip and the downforce of the car, and at the same time you've got to know exactly where your apex points are. And it is one of those situations whereby with these cars, particularly in say the Mercedes and the BMW, the cars can ride very nicely over the curves, whereas we're expecting the likes of our Audi R8s in particular, a car that's known to be very troublesome on high curves. Those cars may have a bit of difficulty, and if a driver clips those curves, particularly in the first half of the lap, it could be doom and gloom for our drivers. But of course, this being an open setup series, you can imagine our drivers will have set their cars up for that straight line speed and also to be able to ride onto these curves aggressively, because at the end of the day, if you can take those curves, it gives you that extra rotation on apex. Alternatively, on corner X, it gives you the ability to be more aggressive on that power coming out of the corner, and then it will help you massively, as we see McGurk coming to the end of his 2nd flying lap right now. And in terms of whether he will improve, he does improve by a further 2 tenths, and as we see him making his way on down here towards turn number 1 once again, it is one of those cases that you can imagine And then when we do go racing here, we are going to have, if you put the average power of a GT3 car at around 500 brake horsepower and 30 cars out on circuit, when you do the quick maths there, it's going to be the case that we're going to have over 15,000 horsepower charging down towards turn number 1. Well, as McGirt jumps to the pits there, it's the case he's done 2 flying laps, so when he leaves the pits this time, this lap will count. He'll only get 1 more flying lap in his session. We'll wait to see if he does pull on out here or whether he does park on up, but as we do wait, of course, we also say hello there to what is RDS Ribbo. We also say hello, I believe, to Neil Ferrier 91, the first time that he's chatted in the chat by looks of things, and I hope you're doing well, Neil. And I also want to say hello there to Solast 1450 and loving the noise that the Mercedes makes. And where it is the case, he's having a quick snack. In fact, that is Carl McGurk himself. So with Carl having a snack, it is the case we're going to give you a brief breather and advance the session on to the race. We'll be back in approximately 2 to 3 minutes. If you haven't got your popcorn, or you haven't had that quick bathroom break, or got yourself a cool beverage, now's the time, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to get a chance in 2-3 minutes time. We'll be back very shortly. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and let's take you through that grid for our race of round number 7 of the GT3 League Season 7, as brought to you by UK Sim Racing. So it is the case, taking pole position was the Platinum driver of Jonathan Hitchin, taking pole with a 106.096, only a tenth faster than Carl McGurk, who lines up P2, the gold pole sitter. Then behind on row number 2, Damien Lobbett from Symphonet Esports, qualifying P3 in the Audi R8 with Oliver Fennell alongside in the BMW M4. Austin Campbell and Alistair Kurt make up your third row, with Stephen Kennedy and Sam Congreve on row number 4, and it is the case Darren Orkett and Alex Hill line up on row number 5. Behind them, taking pole position in the silver class, TGC Racing's Billy Bob Ray, a solid lap there to come home P11 in qualifying for the silver driver, with Joe Newman alongside P12. Behind them on row number 7, David Lewison and Chris Hitchin, the two silver drivers, line up alongside a rivalry between them that's been running all the way through the season. It continues here today down under, with Alan Lever and Ollie Pimley behind on row number 8. Colin Patterson, the silver driver, ahead of the gold driver Nathan Scott on row number 9, with Stephen Masters and Chris Eddersford line up on row number 10. Ryan Williams and Darren Sharples on what is row at number 11 there. Darren Sharples taking the pole position in the bronze class, and keep your eyes on Darren Sharples. He will want to today make it a win after being thwarted at Spa-Francorchamps through no fault of his own, a major incident which robbed him of what he would argue would have been the win in the bronze class. Martin Tillin and Oscar Rocha there line up on row number 12. Keep your eyes on Rocha as well. Our current championship leader in the bronze class will be looking to do well, and then behind them on row number 13 is the case we have James Conley and Mark Cadmore, the two bronze drivers drivers there, looking to get good points on the board. Matthew Routledge and Nathan Foster on row at number 15. Nathan Foster, of course, our absolutely dominant goal driver at the moment, starting from the very back almost, and Kevin Burt lines up last but not least, P31. But it is the case as the grid gets away. Our drivers making the way around on this partial formation lap. We do see it'll be Jonathan Hitchin who takes our drivers to the green as they exit out of the final corners. And as we look to the blimp camera here, in full splendour is the full field of 30 drivers. It is the case that Kevin Burke has not taken to the grid, so it may be the case that he's decided to start from the pit lane or in order to avoid any potential first lap carnage. Alternatively, there was a technical issue with his car and he's not been able to get it fixed, and hoping to get it fixed midway through the race. But indeed, a brilliant perspective there from the blimp camera. And now we look down to trackside here as we are only moments away from going to the green, and when we do, it is Jonathan Hitchin who will lead everybody down to turn number 1. 40 minutes of racing, who will come out on top? We're about to find out. And it's lights out and away we go here as Hitchin goes early in the charge down towards the start-finish line, and all 30 drivers go on the offensive down towards turn number 1. But Hitchin gets a very solid start here as meanwhile Lobbit has to go defensive versus Fennell into the opening corner as they make the way under braking here. The big concertina effect begins, and as they all roll on through it looks like most drivers safely navigating their way up, as we're hearing that Martin Tilling gaining a place there and Masters through the opening run. And as they all head on through, everyone's made it safely up towards turns 3 through to 4, and we do look here to our leaders who are, oh goodness me, and that is Damon Lobbit who's pointing the wrong way, and we've got carnage right towards the back here, as it is the case, we're not quite sure what's kicked it off, but it is the case, Lobbit pointing the wrong way, and most of our drivers making it through turn number 4 in the end, albeit with a massive delay. It's almost like a traffic jam on a motorway in all honesty, but it does look as though that's Austin William Campbell pointing the wrong way. He's reversing onto the circuit, so I wonder if there was a bit of a shunt between Lobbit and Campbell, and those two are not afraid to go toe-to-toe. But meanwhile, it is the case up front with everything that's happened. It's Jonathan Hitchin who leads ahead of Carl McGurk here, and Oliver Fennell behind as they make the way out to 12 and up towards the start-finish line. We didn't quite catch what happened there. Unfortunately, we can't take a look back due to limitations of the replay file we're using, but it is the case there's definitely a bit of carnage on the opening lap. But it seems as though everybody minus 2 cars have made it on through the open lap, although Austin William Campbell is going to try and get to the end of this first lap and get the car to the pit. We also got Darryl Norquette into the pit, so I think there's a bit more damage than meets the eye here as our drivers make the way onto lap number 2, and as they come charging down already, it is the case they all start to make their way into a line as they charge on down into the heavy braking zone once again for turn number 1. And as they do, we have Tyson Belander here, and it is the case the silver driver currently running in P2 in the silver class championship in a difficult start to his race, down to what is a P6 there in class, and as he rolls his way through 3 and up towards 4 very shortly, it is the case Belander's got a long way to go to hunt down the likes of what is Billy Bob Ray and David Larson. And speaking of Ray and Larson, well, we look a little bit further up in front and we've got Kennedy and Newman here battling, and it's Kennedy, TGC Racing's Scottish driver, who makes his way up a position there ahead of Joe Newman. Again, oh goodness me, there's a whack to the back of Kennedy's car there under braking from Joe Newman. I think Newman locked up there under braking and sent him off. But meanwhile, we look a bit further back here and we see one driver going wide, and that's Oscar Rocha, almost taking it to a bit of a rallycross line there. And as he makes his way through the left-hander and 9, well, behind him James Connolly keeping it close as we ride on board here with James Connolly, who's really trying to put pressure on in the Ferrari 488 as they make the way down into turn at number 11. And right now James Connolly, well, he hasn't got the straight line speed in that Ferrari by default, but in the tow here, definitely using the V8 engine versus the 6-cylinder 3-litre engine of what is that BMW 2, his advantage, and pushing on as they make the way down towards turn 1 once again. But as they do, it is the case he's got a bit of pressure from behind, and looking up his inside, that's Nathan Foster here, and of course Foster the man to beat in gold class right now. And as he rolls his way through turn 1, he gains another place overall in terms, oh goodness me, into the wall there, sorry to cut myself short. Mark Cadmore taking a bit too much exit curb and into the wall, and Mark Cadmore's having a difficult day at the office, and he goes to rejoin very shortly. But meanwhile, we must look a bit further up the order here to Martin Dillon, who right now finds himself sandwiched as the gold driver between 2 silver drivers. Behind him, that's Ryan Williams, who's taking a little bit of a sneak peek and saying, mind if I come on through? And ahead of him, Colin Patterson is trying to get away from Williams for the simple reason he doesn't want to be in the fight. as they roll the way down into 9. It is a case here of only 3 minutes of the race gone, and it does feel as though it is going very, very quickly indeed. But that is the short nature of the lap here at Sandown. It is one of those situations where I think Tilling is now settling into a bit of a rhythm, and everybody's trying to settle on down. But of course, at any moment, an overtake could be made as they roll the way on through. And of course, the change here for a lot of drivers is they have to think about, do they go all in terms of the strategy and not save fuel, or do they try and lift their coast their way into these heavy braking zones in order to get some fuel back and get the strategic advantage on their peers later on. I think a number of drivers will have studied Jonathan Hitchens' race at Spa-Francorchamps and seen just how strong the lift and coast technique is in heavy braking zones and how much time that can gain you in the pits, 3-4 seconds almost. But right now we speak of Jonathan Hitchens. He's off camera, but here he is on camera, and we ride on board the gearbox here of your leader, and your leader right now is under a lot of pressure in the Platinum class and overall, as he's got Colin McGirt really trying to go on the offensive here as the McLaren spits flames out the back. And it is the case as they roll their way through turns 11 and 12. Well, Colin McGirt, by comparison here, having started P2, well, he'll be very happy with the fact he's staying with the Platinum class leader, indeed the overall leader. 4/10 separates the two of them as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once again. And as they come charging on down on the brakes here, it is the case, no change at the moment, although I'm hearing that Tom Farrell's had an incident, has had to jump to the pits further down the order. But right now our leader stays out, and you can see our top 4 really running away. And once again we find a very lonely Sam Congreve here in a bit of a no man's land. If he's not chasing after Hitchin in P2, he's normally made it the case he's in P3 or P4 out of the circuit and just a little bit off the leaders. He continues to do that here, but to be fair, I don't think the number 9 driver will mind. He'll be settling into a rhythm here and very comfy. He's very strong in that strategy, to be fair, when he's given the space. But meanwhile, speaking of being given the space, that's James Connolly having to go up the inside of Oscar Rocha for P2 in the bronze class, P22 overall. And right now Rocha's got even more pressure from what is Austin William Campbell behind, as meanwhile in the rear of the picture, that's Darryl Norquette getting it a bit wrong. In fact, that's not Darryl Norquette getting it wrong, that's Matthew Routledge getting it wrong at turn number 1. And meanwhile Darryl Norquette comes on through. Well, it's all kicking off now, and it's kicking off a bit further up the road as well, as we've got Tyson Verlander here battling with, where's the Ferrari, Darren Sharples. And Darren Sharples, your bronze leader, he will not want to have his race upset by anyone today. It's the case that every time he's been in a position to win, he's had somebody get entangled with him in an incident, and this is not going to be that day, as right now he leads the bronze class and he's got a nice amount of room. As we see, that is a Lamborghini going on around, and it's collected. What is there? James Connolly, that's Colin Patterson in the Lamborghini, who's gone for a turn at turn number 9, and well behind we can see Stephen Kennedy now trying to recover some places from earlier as Colin Patterson gets it wrong, and in return now he's got to go defensive here through turn number 12 versus the Platinum driver, who tries to cut his way around the outside. Well, with the wounds on that Lamborghini, I can imagine he's going to lose a bit of straight line speed here, as he won't be cutting as aerodynamically efficient shape down towards turn number 1. Indeed, here comes Stephen Kennedy to make the point as they make the way down. You can see as soon as Kennedy comes out of the draft, he's got to be very bold on the brakes, because that Ferrari just has no legwork in those top gears. But still, the battle rages on here, and this is for P25, and Patterson holds on in the run through 2 into 3. I think Kennedy's going to have to wait until the run to 9 now to get the move done if he's going to go for it. We're hearing that Tom Farrell has left the pit lane after being towed to the pits due to damage picked up on an earlier lap, but right now drivers press on here, and it is the case that we do look from our battle for P25 to a little bit ahead in the road up towards James Connolly here in P23, and he has got Darryl Norquette behind him. The bronze driver here of James Connolly will be looking to try and hold on. Now, if you're uninitiated here and you're not used to tuning into the UK sim racing broadcast, how can you tell if a driver's platinum, gold, silver or bronze? Well, if you look to the time and town, indeed to the driver's name in the bottom left-hand corner as well, so the time and town on the left-hand side, you'll see between the position number of a driver and their name, we've got a little stripe. So it's the case the blue stripe represents a platinum driver, gold represents, or gold yellow we should say, represents gold, the silver or the grey will represent a silver driver, and well, the browny bronze colour of course will represent bronze, and that's how you can tell. But meanwhile, James Connolly here, he's not going to be worrying too much about the fact that he's got Norquette going up his inside into turn number 1, and I think he'll let this one go, recognising it's not his fight. Now you may be also asking at this point, well, isn't there a championship just for our drivers within their respective classes? So it's the case a bronze driver won't want to battle with a gold driver, for example. Well, yes and no. Some drivers will be concerned in the fact there is an overall championship, and speaking of one driver right now who will be, he's Chris Hitchin, who has Ollie Pimley behind him, and the reason he'll be concerned is because if you finish towards the top spots, particularly in that top 10, you will get points in the overall championship. championship, and therefore it is the case it doesn't matter if you're a platinum driver all the way down to a bronze driver battling in that overall championship. It's just as much pride on the line as it is within your own drivers class championship, and we've seen that in particular from the likes of Carl McGirt and also Nathan Foster, whereby they've gone to war with the platinum drivers very successfully. But meanwhile, speaking of going to war here, we've got gold drivers are plenty going to win the gold class, always providing these brilliant midfield battles, and it is Stephen Masters on the inside there in the Ferrari in the run down towards turn 1 versus what is Chris Ederson. Ederson getting the Mercedes nose ahead. They go too wide here through turn 1 in the battle for what is P6 in the gold class, and behind, well, that is Martin Tilling trying to get into the mix, insane. Don't mind if I get involved, chaps. And as they roll the way into turn 4, well, I think he's just got his answer there. They do mind it. He's Constantine almost into the rear of Masters as they make the way up towards turn 9. And on the charge here, these three drivers, and behind them, Ryan Williams, I think, will be thinking at this point, great, I was breaking away from Tyson Verlander, and now I'm going to get caught up behind a freeway battle for a gold position, and that's not what the silver driver would want at all, as we see them make their way down towards what is the left-right-left combination of 7 through turn 9, and as they do, well, very tricky sequence of corners, and rolling on through, and Martin Tilling here stays patiently behind what is Masters and Ederson as they head up towards turn number 11, but as they do, it is the case, we've got battles plenty happening around the circuit right now, and this being one of the closest ones within a class, and we ride on board here with Martin Tilling, who gets a good exit out of 12, but in return you can see Masters in the toe of Edisford. It is the case he's able to keep Tilling at bay, and we know this BMW M4 is very strong on the straights by comparison with its peers, minus the Mercedes, but it is the case just not close enough there. Oh goodness me, really getting close under brake, and I thought he was going to go for what was a little bit of a later brake than that, but he's going late enough as is, and as he rolls his way through turns 2 and 3, you can see just how much Tilling is able to close up there through the chicane, given the BMW's prowess for rolling over curves or being able to take curves more aggressively. And in return, Masters getting a very poor run there out of 4. They charge their way up the hill. Now Masters will cover the inside. He's going to make Tilling go all the way around the houses here as they head up to the crest. And as they make the way on in, who's going to back out? Well, surely Tilling's going to back out. There's no way around the outside here in the flat out run down towards 9. And indeed, as they roll the way on through, Tilling has to be patient and once again wait his turn. But you can feel that Tilling is really having a bit of a move on here in his mind, in the fact he's getting very close to the back of Masters and he wants to get on through as soon as possible. And Edisford, to be fair, can break away in the first half a lap, and this is Chris Edison, the UK sim racing founder, but it is the case it's not working out in the second half a lap where he's losing out, and we're hearing that Colin Patterson has just had a spin somewhere on circuit and is dropping down the order. In fact, Colin Patterson has had to jump to the pitch, and we have had the retirement, the confirmed retirement of Kevin Wesley Burton, but also what is Damien Lobbett. They both retired. Burke, of course, not taking to the grid due to technical issues with his Audi, and Lobbett for that first lap incident. And we've also got Farrell and Patterson in the pits right now being repaired after major shunts for the pair of them. But meanwhile, as Edison tries to keep the pack of drivers behind him, he's currently P6 in the gold class, P14 overall. It is the case he has got a long train of drivers behind. And well, it is the case we saw, of course, at Charles Villeneuve, and also last time out at Spa-Francorchamps, Edisford having to hold on despite the fury of a number of drivers behind. He's very good at defending and making that Mercedes wide, and here's Nathan Foster in the Porsche 911, and right now it is the case the number 52 driver will want to be up there batting for the win, as meanwhile Masters takes a peek to the inside there into turn number 9. He can't find it, but that's going to leave him vulnerable here versus Tilling as they make the way on out of the corner and down to, oh goodness me, that's a knock there down to the back of Tilling, and I believe that's Ryan Williams who's given Tilling a bit of a knock into turn number 11, and as a result now Nathan Foster's going to see this as an opportunity to come on through. But Tilling there, for no fault of his own, by looks of things, being sent for a spin, and that is a disaster for Foster. Just look at this, he cannot get on through. That Porsche just does not have the legs. He's going to have to really send it up the inside here, and Foster goes for it versus Williams versus the silver driver P16, but he's still not able to get through, and that's why Foster qualified so low down. That Porsche has just not got any straight line speed. It's got it all in the corners, but here it's about power, and that's what the Porsche is lacking, as he has to stay behind for a little bit longer. But meanwhile, as we come from these guys to what is a little bit further up the road, and in particular to Chris Hitchin here, it is the case the Symphony Esports driver now holding on versus Joe Newman and Ollie Pimley. And Joe Newman here in a very similar situation to Nathan Foster in the fact that he's been running this close to the back of Hitchin for some time. And indeed, it is the case their lap times are very comparable. In fact, Newman a couple of tenths faster a lap, but it doesn't mean anything if he can't get through on the straight line runs. He has not got the speed, and given the fact that most of the overtaking here happens into the corners that end those straights, it is the case that for Joe Newman right now, he can run as close as he wants, but he just cannot find a way on through, and instead he's got to find a way to make this work on strategy. And I can imagine Newman right now must be thinking, okay, the best I can do here today is probably P11, as we're hearing that Austin William Campbell is into the pit lane, and we've also got Mark Cadmore has confirmed a retirement, and also I believe Farrell is potentially on the cards for a retirement at this point. But we do have Campbell in. I don't think that's for a scheduled stop, or is it? If it is, it's a very early stop, and that's a very risky one to go. Only 13 minutes in to this 40-minute race. We normally see our undercuts achieved around 15 minutes in, and Austin William Campbell in fact coming out of the pit lane already. It was a quick stop, and I think that may have been for some repair work. But meanwhile, Newman here, we just watch him as he tries to chase down Hitchin, but again you just can see how the gold driver chasing after the silver driver, he just does not have the impetus to get on past. He's got all the craft in the world, indeed has Hitchin as well, but it is the case, it means nothing if that Porsche isn't going to give him the opportunity. And here in the run to turn 11 he may get a chance if it is the case that Hitchin gets it wrong coming out to turns 9 and 10, but rolling through here, no change at the moment. But meanwhile we must look from them to our leaders. Let's not forget about our top 4 right now, and in fact since we last looked at them, it is the case that Hitchin and Carl McGuirk have really broken away there in the top 2 versus Oliver Fennell behind in P3, and then you can see Sam Congreve creeping up, and those lap times are really going against Fennell right now in the number 10 car. It is the case, his last lap of 107.53, Congreve by behind 107.42, and ahead it is the case our leaders, our top 2 are lapping in the very low 107s, the 7.1s or the 6.9s if you are Jonathan Hitchin right now, as we see that Conley peeling out the way, and Congreve by comparison, oh goodness me, and Conley's seen Congreve coming and respecting that. And meanwhile, well, here's a man who is on a charge, Alistair Kerr from RD Simsport. We haven't really talked about him to be fair, but the number 51 driver right now chasing after Congreve and has been closing down Congreve lap after lap, and that last lap he took a whole second out of Congreve, but you can imagine Congreve may have been a bit hesitant coming through turns 11 and 12 given the fact that we saw Conley trying to return to the circuit, and it is the case we'll have to wait and see how that lap time balances out on the next couple of laps. But as they roll the way on through, it is the case we look from them to Alan Lever. And well, here is the 2 old dude driver from England, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, it is the case that he's going to be trying to make the move there on what is Nathan Scott, but Nathan Scott not having any of it, but almost taking a bit more of the exit curve there at turn 1, being a bit greedy with that, and the car really lifting off the road. You could see it in the fact that the whole front end came up, and it is the case that Alan Lever here really has been building a lot of momentum in his championship campaign ever since Circuit Charles Villeneuve. It's been showing since round number 5, and last time out Spa-Francorchamps in that brilliant battle in the top end of the gold class, and here now battling for what is effectively P2 in the gold class, P9 overall, but to do so he's got to find his way past Nathan Scott. And to be fair, Nathan Scott, while the last late breakers, it is the case as they make their way down into turn number 9. Is there anything noticeable here in terms of differences? Well, we can see there that Scott going a bit deeper into the turn 9 apex, missing the actual apex curve itself. Lever meanwhile taking a bit of a tighter approach, but Scott getting a very nice exit, and Lever really chucking the Lamborghini over those curves. He's definitely got the car set up to ride on those curves, but coming out of turn number 12, just look at the speed that Scott has pulled on Lever there. We'll see it neutralise when the slipstream really starts to come into effect, but that is a sign that Scott is very much hooked up here, and Alan Lever's really got to go some to try and get Scott to make a mistake or to gain that advantage. For as they roll the way through turn number 1, that gap has opened up by a couple of attempts, but now as they roll the way through turns 2 and 3, they've got Routledge in front. Now of course in P25, that is our driver Matthew Routledge, who is running a lap down, and this could really compromise Scott's ability to get away. But to be fair, they are catching Routledge on this back straight, so they may be able to get past him. At least that's what Scott will be hoping as he flashes his lights there, and indeed Routledge responds. Now will Routledge give space to both of them? It is the case he does indeed, as Alan Lever there flashes lights as well to say, yeah, also let me through please, I'm battling with this guy, don't block me thank you. And as they make their way through, Routledge obliges, but as they roll their way down into turn number 9, again you can see Lever just gets that run through the corners, but again it's the power where he just does not have that leverage. But meanwhile, looking from these 2 gold drivers to some gold drivers further down the order, we look back to Nathan Foster here running P8 in the gold class, and he's all over the back of Chris Edison right now, and Edison has actually been passed by Masters and Pimley since we last looked, so they have changed places around here, and it is the case they roll their way through turns at number 11 and 12 and heading up towards 13. Nathan Foster has to wait his opportunity as they head down towards turn number 1 once again, and we are heading closer and closer to the midpoint of this race. 17 minutes complete, still another 23 on the board plus the final lap, and we could expect to start to see some scheduled stops here. Or is it the case case that everyone's going to try and go as late as possible, because the thing for a lot of drivers, of course, is overtaking at Sandown, as we've seen, is possible, but it's only really possible on the straights unless somebody makes a major error. And if it is the case that you're battling for position and you go for that undercut, you need to find yourself clear space on the track. And you can see on the circuit map then, the top right corner of the screen, we've got plenty of space between P22 as occupied by Martin Tillin, Oscar Rocha and P23, but other than that there's not really any space on circuit. So everybody right now will be working with their team strategists in order to understand where can they pit, or when can they pit, to come out in clear air and put those laps in. As right now Nathan Foster, we're only thinking about one thing: how do I find my way past this juggernaut in front of me that is the Mercedes of Chris Edison. Well, to do so, Foster has got to find a way to get Edison to make a mistake. But if there's one thing we know about Edison, once he's ahead of you, it's very rare he makes a mistake. If anything, he just simply finds a way to make that Mercedes so wide that it's almost as if it's worth 2 cars on its own out there. But as he rolls his way out to turn number 12 and down towards the start-finish line once again, we can see holding on to that position for the time being. But meanwhile, looking from them to our leaders, we can see it is the case that Jonathan Hitchin here under major pressure from Carl McGurk, who we ride on board with as he rolls his way through turn number 9. This battle for overall position, and of course for Carl McGurk, he would love to add his name to that list of individuals this season who've won a race outside the Platinum class. Of course, Nathan Foster taking that win at Circuit Charles Villeneuve, and it is the case that Carl McGurk would love to add his name to the chart, but right now to do so, he's got to find a way past Hitchin, and Hitchin is no easy task, because if you get ahead of him, he's very slippery in terms of he'll just find a way back past you in terms of strategy, and that's what McGurk's got to figure out here as they make their way down towards turn number 1. And as they do, you see McGurk being very aggressive into apex, then almost sending the car beyond the curb and almost understeering wide. Meanwhile, Hitchin taking a much more composed run, but that's what you've got to be in this Mercedes. You've got to be rugged. It's not a ballerina compared to the McLaren. It is the case, it requires brute force, and that's exactly what McGurk's applying plenty of as he makes his way up the hill, and as he charges on up here towards what is the crest and into turns at 6 through to 9. Now can we see Carl McGurk potentially look for the move? He thinks about it, he's starting to build a bit of confidence, but he has to back out this time. As they roll the way on down the hill, he's just not close enough when he needs it most to be able to go for that move, but Hitchin goes a little bit deep. This could be an opportunity for McGurk to look for a move, or at least set up the run to turn number 1 here. If Hitchin finds himself out of position through turns 11 and 12 and going on to 13, they make the way out of the final major corner, and as they do here, as we see Oscar Rocha coming into the pit lane, coming in from P23, and well, that will release a number of drivers. It is the case of McGurk not close enough this time as they head on down towards turn number 1. But speaking of closing up here in the battle for P3 in the Platinum class, P4 overall, this is Sam Congreve, and behind him, that is no lie, that is an RD Simsport machine piloted by Alistair Kirk, and it is looking very, very threatening right now as Congreve goes a bit deep there through turn number 1. Kirk's on the outside here into turn number 2. He won't be able to make it too wide yet. He's got to wait his turn, but as they make the way up towards turn number 4, it is the case we've also got Hill, Alex Hill and David Larson into the pit lane. Larson coming in from P2 in the silver class from P9 overall. Hill coming in from P7 overall, what was at the time P5 in the Platinum class. It is the case we are starting to enter pit stop season as we make our way beyond the halfway point of the race, and well, Hill and Larson already leaving the pit lane. It's a very quick pit stop here. It sounds like it's a bit of a splash and dash. Nobody taking any tyres here. The tyre degradation rate not too high, and as they roll the way through right now, it's the case that Sam Congreve holds on for the time being, but Kirk is definitely looking very, very aggressive. But Sam Congreve, to be fair, I don't think he's sweating too much right now, or if he is, he's not showing it, because this is the Sam Congreve we've come to know. Very cool as a cucumber as he makes his way out to turn number 12, but I do wonder whether if he's just slightly feeling the pressure there as Alistair Kirk. If we do know one thing about Alistair Kirk, it is the case that when it goes wrong, he finds a way to get back into the top 5, and it hasn't gone wrong today. So his target will be to be on that Platinum podium, and he has been denied so many podiums here in this season so far, sometimes through his own efforts, sometimes through instance not of his own fault, but regardless, he is salivating at the prospect of gaining one more place and being on that Platinum podium come at the end of tonight. But can he do it? That's the question. Well, Congreve will want him not to be able to, but RD Sims will be screaming to say to him, just give it an extra 5%. I think Kirk was saying, I'm giving up all she's got, Captain, as they make the way up the hill. But as they do, it is the case we look a bit further back, and in fact, here's Martin Tilling finding his way past Darren Sharples, and we should point out Darren Sharples, who was in P21, now dropping down to P22. He won't mind that, as we do briefly lose everybody there. I think that might have been a little bit of latency in the lobby at the time. But Darren Sharples leading the bronze class right now. He's yet to take his scheduled stop, but to be fair, I think he's feeling very comfortable out front right now. given the fact that he has a huge amount of time over his peers in the class. Oscar Rocha in P2, James Conley in P3, and then the rest of the bronze class has retired. Cadmore, Farrell and Burke, they've all had very difficult days, so Darren Sharples right now well on his course to bringing home a win. But of course, it is the case for the uninitiated. Bronze class leaders are normally cursed to have an incident before the end of the race, and can Darren Sharples finally break the curse of the bronze class, which is to go the whole race without an incident if he's leading? We'll wait and see, but the commentator's curse should not apply here, and we hope it doesn't, as meanwhile we look from Sharples to what is Hitchin, once again our race leader. Now, when will he pit? That is the question. Now, based on form, we've normally seen that Hitchin will try to go long. He will normally try to go the longest of everybody, minus the likes of Sam Congreve, for example, and we've got Masters and Norquette into the pits as well, and as they roll their way on down and in towards the left-hander, turn number 9, once again, it is no change for these guys. But I can tell you one thing that's quite interesting right now, behind, that is no joke, that's Austin William Campbell. He's a lap down, but to be fair, ever since being lapped, he's literally attached himself to the back of our two leaders as if he's essentially surgically there, and it is the case, he's just not letting go, and I think he's trying to make up some lap time here, given how wrong it's gone for the 555 driver. And I also think this might be a little bit of a message to say, if I hadn't been involved in that incident on lap number 1, I could have been racing with you guys. And to be fair, that sometimes can help you just reignite a little bit of pride, as Campbell right now running P21, P7 in the platinum class, has had a very difficult day and one not to necessarily remember. But meanwhile, we look from Campbell to what is here Nathan Scott. He's running P2 in the gold class, and behind him that is still Alan Lever. Things have settled down between these two for the time being. Well, I say settled down, if you can call it settled down, when Alan Lever's literally nipping at his heels every 5 seconds. But as they charge their way down the start-finish line, straight down towards turn number 1, it is okay, 16 minutes still on the clock, and Alan Lever is not giving up on this battle as of yet, as they both head the way through turn number 1 this time around. They've got a bit of traffic in front of them. That's Oscar Rocha in front, and Oscar Rocha running in P24 here, the TGC Racing driver from the United States of America. It is the case the number 4 driver peels out the way immediately. He knows he doesn't want to be in this situation. Indeed, great respect shown there from Oscar Rocha, respecting the fact he's got the 2 gold drivers coming on through, and now he'll build up speed. But as he does, Alan Lever will finally get on through, and Rocha will tuck in behind as they make the way up towards turn 6. But as they do, into the pits, here he comes. That is Alistair Curtin making his way on in from P5 overall, P4 in the platinum class, and he's decided he can't beat Congreve on track. He's going to have to beat him on strategy. Will this be enough? It'll be a very fast stop, of course, and we see it there. We've got Stephen Kennedy leaving the pit lane, but meanwhile Nathan Foster here all over the back of what is Chris Hitchin. This is the battle for what is P11 now. I thought there was going to be contact between the two of them now. I think Nathan Foster almost in a way pushing what is Hitchin along as they make the way on through, and oh, that's a nice move up the inside. They're very late on the brakes, and I think it is the case Chris Hitchin starting to fall away as this race goes on, and indeed Nathan Foster up to P11. He's now going up to P10, of course, with Nathan Scott in the pits, but do keep in mind, of course, Nathan Scott taking that scheduled stop. Nathan Foster has yet to take his scheduled stop, and that was a brilliant move for P10, a valuable one, but I think it is the case it's come a bit too late, and Foster right now is doing damage limitation here. He's not going to be up there in terms of the battle for the podium in the gold class unless we have a major incident of some sort. We're not hoping for one, of course. He might be, but we're definitely not hoping for a major smash. We want to see as many drivers as possible get to the end of this one as they make the way on around. But as they do, we look a little bit further back here to Brian Williams, and it is the case the TGC Racing driver here making his way through the kink of turn number 5 and up the hill, and what in front of him, he has got Chris Edison, the 2 Mercedes driver. Brian Williams there has definitely been in the wars. That is a bruised and battered front end of the Mercedes AMG if I've seen one. And behind him, that is Alex Hill in P14. And Alex Hill, the Tiki Simsport driver here, having started in what was P10. He's lost 4 places since the start, and it's gone very, very wrong for the Tiki Simsport driver. In fact, falling back a bit. I think he did lose out in that big whacking incident that was at turn number 4 in the open lap, where so many drivers had to essentially just put the car stationary. And if anybody remembers what happened, of course, in one of the major GT series back at Macau years ago in the real world of motorsport, it is the case we saw a similar situation there where the incident essentially blocked the road and everybody had to wait patiently. But meanwhile, oh goodness me, and that's Alan Lever off, and well, he's just rejoined the circuit, and that is coming out of turn number 9. Well, it looks as though Alan Lever there has been in the wars, and well, in fact, no, that's not turn number 9, my apologies, that's turn number 1 where Alan Lever's got it wrong. Now, was there contact or not? That would have been well, by his own volition by looks of things. He didn't really have anybody around him at the time, but Alan Lever has got it wrong, and he's yet to pit, and now he's got Nathan Foster behind. Well, remember I was saying only moments ago that Nathan Foster will be hoping that some of his peers have instanced to bring him further up the order. Well, I think his wish has just been granted, as meanwhile, a driver who we haven't really talked about has just come into the pits, and that is Billy Bob Ray. He's made his way in, the TGC racing driver from Scotland. He's been leading the silver class on his lonesome for pretty much the whole race, and right now he's patiently just being serviced and making his way back out. Where's P2 in the form of Chris Hitchin? Well, he's making his way through the final corner here, and as he comes on through into the kink of 13, well, Hitchin has yet to take his pit stop, and well, Billy Bob Ray has taken his stop. He's still being serviced in the pit lane. He's leaving the pits now, so it is the case Chris Hitchin will take the lead of the silver class for a couple of laps, but well, I think Billy Bob Ray is going to have the ultimate reassurance in the fact that as he sees Chris Hitchin heading off into the distance, he'll know that Hitchin's got to pit, and right now all Billy Bob Ray's got to do is bring the car home, and if he does so, he'll take the silver win here, and he'll be very happy with that. As meanwhile, into the pits, I look out my commentary box window, it's Jonathan Hitchin, also Oliver Fennell. Meanwhile, Carl McGuirk goes on to lead a lap of this race as he heads on through, and Sam Congreve comes on through with him, so it's Congreve and McGuirk who decide to stay long this time as they make the way on around, and meanwhile, as they come charging on through, you can see Congreve there going past Stephen Masters and Daryl Norquette as well. Both of them are lapped down on Congreve as they roll the way on through, and it is the case that for Congreve and also McGuirk, they cannot afford to be held up now. They've got to deliver these laps. They've got to treat them like qualifying laps, and it is the same for Jonathan Hitchin. It will come down to who gets the best possible in versus out laps, and well, what about Jonathan Hitchin? I hear you ask. Well, look at this. He has bought himself all the space he needs to be able to retake the lead of this race. He's bought himself clear air. The next car is 3 seconds up the road, and it is Martin Tillin, and well, I don't think Martin Tillin is going to get in the way of Hitchin when he comes up behind, but meanwhile, more pressing matters. It is the case we have got 3 drivers in, and we've got Joe Newman and Ollie Pimley in particular, and the 2 gold drivers there going toe-to-toe earlier on. We see Pimley leaving the pit lane. What about Joe Newman? Newman leaves just ahead of Ollie Pimley, so it is the case that Newman holds on to that position of what was, it's currently P5 in terms of the gold class, but we believe it may be worth a little bit more later on. But as they make the way on through, it is the case they come charging down. In the rear view picture there, we've got Alan Lever, I believe, trying to find his way on around. Indeed, Alan Lever then making the move on Ollie Pimley to retake what is P6 in the gold class, P16 overall, and Ollie Pimley will be cursed with the fact he wasn't quite able to get out ahead of Lever after Lever's spin at turn number 1, and behind Stephen Masters there in a difficult day. Well, right now running P8 in the gold class, P18, he's got Darren Norquette putting all the pressure on, as meanwhile Sam Congreve has come into and left the pits, and here is Congreve as he makes his way out the pits. Where is Fennell? There is Fennell, and Fennell gets ahead of Congreve as they make the way down towards turn number 1, and well, it is the case that Congreve has to go hunting once again with just over 10 minutes to go, but it is looking as though here it's going to be a straight fight between these 2, but there's Alistair Kirk as well. It is the case that P3 to P5 overall on circuit are separated by a margin of 4 seconds, and well, that is the battle there for P2 in the platinum class, but Fennell doing very well there to get the jump on Congreve. Now, can he convert it into the P2 come the finish? That will be the challenge. As meanwhile, I look out my commentary box window, I see Carl McGuirk has made his way into the pit lane to take his mandatory pit stop. It's the gold leader, and I would presume he's going to be coming out around Hitchin as he makes his way into his pit box. Where is Jonathan Hitchin? That is the question. Well, Hitchin making his way right now down towards what is turns 11 and 12. I think this is going to be pretty straightforward for Hitchin, although we'll have to wait and see. McGuirk is leaving the pits right now. I think McGuirk may have this as they make the way on down. We look to the blimp camera here and look out for Hitchin in the McLaren. There is the McLaren. No, that's not the McLaren. My apologies. There's the McLaren, and that is Hitchin coming on through. And as they make the way on down, Hitchin takes the lead of this race back, and Carl McGuirk comes out just behind as they make the way down towards turn number 2. And it is the case they are as they were. Hitchin has opened up a little bit more of a gap. He's put a couple of attempts between the 2 of them, but McGuirk just missing out there by a hair's width in the end. But he decided to go long. He thought he could try and go long and upset the apple cart for Hitchin, but it is the case our platinum leader continues to lead this race, and I think McGuirk will be thinking, much like many of the platinum class drivers, what do you have to do to beat Jonathan Hitchin other than go to Circuit Charles Villeneuve, where Hitchin had a very poor qualifying session, of course? Well, that is the big question, but as they make the way on through, it is the case we do look down to Joe Newman here, and well, Joe Newman running in P11. It is the case running P3 within the class. Look who's behind him. we ride on board with Nathan Foster here. Both of them have serviced their pit stops, and it is the case that Nathan Foster, I think, feeling a bit buoyant now. He's up into P4 in the gold class. He's going on a charge, as we see spinning there. That is Austin William Campbell going for a spin. Goodness me, and Campbell just cannot get a break here today at what is Sandown International Motor Raceway. It is the case he's had a spin earlier on in the race, and now he's had another one, and it is the case the 555 driver now finds himself behind Alan Levin. That a very early pit stop was an attempt at an undercut, and he made it work, to be fair, recovering, but this is not going to be the way he wants his recovery to go, as Alan Levin there gets a little bit of a tank slapper down the rear of the car and has to take to the escape road and bring it down to turn number 9. But Alan Lever, of course, will be expected to give that time back. If not this time, if he does it again, he'll most likely have to give a slowdown. And as they make the way down into turns 11 and 12, I think William Campbell there will be thinking, well, that's a bit unfair. He used the runoff space to his advantage. And there, I think, is the slowdown that we're referring to. And I think it was the case that Lever was deciding to wait until they got to the start-finish straight. So they have a time to serve the slowdown within. They don't have to serve it immediately, of course. They must do it in a safe manner. And Alan Lever there serving that slowdown. And he's got Ollie Pimley behind us. Pimley takes a little bit of a peek for the P5 in the gold class, P13 in the run down towards turn number 1, but he can't quite find it. And we've also got Daryl Norquette, we've got Stephen Masters going on in here, we've got the long train of 5 drivers, that's Chris Hitchen as well, closed up to the back of this. Well, my goodness, it is the case, we have got plenty of battles, but meanwhile we must cut back to that battle we looked at from earlier, Newman versus Foster, as they battle their way up towards turn number 6, the 2 Porsche drivers in the gold class. It's going to be Foster on the inside, Newman on the outside here. Foster's going to have the run, and I think Newman's going to have to back out, otherwise they'll both be going off, and then indeed he does, and Foster there being brave to go the inside, but there we can see Newman trying to go back up the inside into turn number 9 as they come through the kink of 10. It is the case they're side by side in the run down towards 11. Foster on the inside, Newman on the outside. Well, Foster holds on in the end, but I can imagine that right now Newman's going to be saying, I'm going to have you on the run down towards turn number 1, and Foster's probably thinking, you can try, as they make the way across that line. And great rivalry between these two earlier on in the season. That rivalry being reignited here today in Australia, and as they make the way down towards turn number 1, Foster just has enough in the car to be able to stay ahead for the time being, but behind them we can see it is the case. There is Austin William Campbell, Alan Lever, then at the head of the next gold train that's running from P5 to P7 in the gold class. It's P13 through to P16 behind, with Daryl Norquette caught up in the middle of it. And right now the Racing Forces driver must be thinking, what is it with these pesky gold drivers? Well, the platinum driver's going to find his way through as he almost hits the exit wall. They're just missing the tyre barrier by a sliver. My goodness, and I think he would have to quickly snap the steering wheel away towards the left. That looks very, very close, but as they make the way up the hill this time, Norquette stuck behind Ollie Pimley and just cannot find a way on through, it would seem, as they make the way on down the hill. But as they come charging on down towards turn number 9, it is the case Stephen Masters there being patient, as meanwhile, oh goodness me, what's this? That's Nathan Foster off circuit, and we've also got, that's Austin William Campbell. I'm not sure what's happened here, but Foster, after making that pass, something has gone very, very wrong, and well, I think that may be some suspension damage. So the car looks as though it's slightly pulling to one side. I wonder if there's been contact between Foster and Campbell. As we had Austin William Campbell jump to the pits, Foster stays out, so I think he feels as though he can soldier on. But as they make the way on down here, it is the case that Nathan Foster definitely going from what was a brilliant run towards a disaster, and well, that is very unfortunate for Foster, who right now is seeing his championship momentum definitely being curved as of today. But meanwhile, we look back here to what is Sam Congreve, who continues to chase after Oliver Fennell as they make the way onto another lap. 5 minutes to go, 32 laps almost done here, as it is the case they've gone onto that 32nd lap. We've got plenty more to go, and I think Fennell's having some slight connectivity issues there as he phases in and out of existence. Say it's not so, we're not going to expect one of the random things that can happen in motorsport. We're disconnecting sim racing. It's the equivalent of an engine blowing up, of course, in real world motorsport, and that's not what we want to see. But right now I think Fennell will be just focusing on trying to get the car on home, and Congreve will keep on pushing. But meanwhile, further back here we can see that Alan Lever is now going to take on Newman as he looks to go side by side, and he goes around the outside into turn number 11. My good lord, and Newman goes wide, and as he does, oh goodness me, it's the case that Pimley, Norquette and Masters all stack up. It's going to be 3 wide down in the run towards turn number 1, and in the end Newman just has to back out and put the car in the middle. He's got no speed after that mistake. I think he was caught blind there by Alan Lever's move from outside to inside, and Norquette makes a break for it and gets past the gold drivers as they make the way through 1. Well, look at this, Ollie Pimley's trying to come on back in the end, but Norquette gets on through, and Ollie Pimley will be grateful that he's past Newman. What he won't be happy about, however, is he's lost the platinum rear guard that was keeping him safe from Masters behind as they make the way down towards turn number 6, or up towards, I should say, Martin Tillins in into the pits for another stop. I think there's a problem with the car for Tilling, but as they make the way on through, 4 minutes still remaining. What the lap as well at the end, it's going to go down to the wire in many a battle here. And speaking of the wire, here are your top 2 right now, and they're still nose to tail. They've literally been like this since lap number 1. It's Hitchin who leads. We can see McGirt looking around the outside. And as they make their way up towards turn number 6 here, who's going to be the bold on the brakes? Well, right now it is going to be Hitchin who just holds on. And, well, they didn't brake there, of course. Now they got on the brakes. And we can see that Carl McGirt stays with him. Meanwhile, looking at Fennell versus Congreve, it's a similar situation. The battle for the final spot in the overall podium. But Alistair Kirk also creeping into this mix. Don't count him out. He could get involved at the very end. 3 minutes, we're still counting on down here, and it is the case. This race continues to deliver. It's not over yet, and that's what Sandown's known for. They're deploying all that horsepower, and indeed right now it's anyone's guess who's going to be your winner coming in. Will it be Hitchin? Will it be McGirt? Will we see McGirt add himself to the Hall of Fame of gold drivers who take the overall win? We will find out shortly as they make the way on through. There's not long left. I think McGirt right now is trying to get Hitchin to make a mistake, but the thing with Hitchin is he just does not make mistakes, and that is what keeps him up there overall and in the Platinum Class Championship by a significant margin. And McGirt they're getting a poor run out turn number 4, and in fact falling back to half a tenth from 2 tenths as they make the way up the hill. But the thing they've now got to deal with is the fact they have got traffic in front of them, and that is quite a bit of traffic in the form of Kennedy. That is Stephen Kennedy running P19 and Brian Williams in P18, and they're trying to navigate around one another. This could be a conundrum for them to deal with very shortly, and I think McGirt at this point will be hoping that is the case, that Kennedy and also Williams are more focused on their battle rather than letting the leaders on through, and that could give them an opportunity. But meanwhile, Joe Newman comes into the pits. I think the whack to the curbing here at turn number 12 has unsettled the car and caused some damage to the car, as Newman right now has come on through to be serviced. But as he makes his way through the pit lane, in fact I think he'll be exiting shortly by the looks of things. In fact he is. And was that actually a drive-through penalty? I'm not 100% sure, but in this case Newman has visited the pit lane once again. But meanwhile we continue to watch this battle for the lead, one of our closest battles out on circuit right now. And as they roll the way on through, McGirt stays with Hitchin, heading through the chicane sequence of 2, 3, and as they make their way up towards turn number 4, now they'll be feeling that traffic in front, particularly Hitchin. But you see immediately Kennedy knows it's coming and peels out the way, and as they make their way down the back straight here up towards turn number 6 once again, well, McGirt will be thinking, okay, how's this going to work out now with Williams, who's also in front, and Kennedy tucking in behind? Well, we'll see them make their way into turn number 6, and as they do, using as much width to the corner as possible as they roll their way down the hill into turn number 9. As they do, McGirt gets very close to the back of Hitchin there, gets a little bit too close for comfort and has to hesitate on the throttle. They make their way down towards turn number 11, and McGirt puts himself up the inside there of Williams. That's going to cost him a bit of whip to the apex of 11. That will cost him time, and I think that may be it unless he can get a really good run this final lap as they make their way to the timeline. It's Hitchin who leads as they head on to the final lap here. The white flag is out. Barry Flag waves the flag, and now they head on towards lap number 36, and Hitchin leads by 9 tenths of a second here with that compromise line. But meanwhile, oh goodness me, and that is Alan Lever into the wall there as we see, oh goodness, and Edison having to take evasive action, Foster taking evasive action, and that is at turn number 3, and Lever gets it wrong by the looks of things. So there's been some sort of contact with another driver right at the end after recovering and doing so well, and oh goodness, and that is Kennedy who gets a small whack in behind. Rutledge also into the wall. It's all going wrong, but meanwhile I'll tell you one driver who it's not going wrong for. He's holding on by half a second at the moment. He's got a very fast charging Mercedes in the gold class behind him. That is your platinum leader, Jonathan Hitchin. Whereas he makes his way here down towards turn number 9, he's got a very slow moving Tyson Melander there. Although I think that's the camera just giving away the braking zone. I don't think Melander's got a problem with the car. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 11, it's only 3 more corners to go, 2 major corners. Hitchin makes it for 11. He heads into 12. And as he comes out of the final major corner, he heads to the kick of 13. He's done it. He's held on to the lead. And in the end, it's Jonathan Hitchin, the number 21 car, who takes the win in the overall and in the platinum class, ahead of our gold winner, Carl McGirt. And then on his debut in the series, Oliver Fennell will take P3 overall, second in the platinum class. A brilliant debut for Fennell, ahead of Alistair Kirk, who's found his way past Sam Congreve right at the finish. I'm not sure how that's happened, but it's happened. He takes P3 on the platinum podium, ahead of Sam Congreve. And here is your silver another winner. It's TGC Racing's Billy Bob Ray from Scotland, who's led this one in the class from start to finish. He's brought it on home, and then it will be David Larson who comes out of the final corners to take P8 on circuit, and that will be second place in the silver class, ahead of what is our second place finisher in the gold class of Nathan Scott here, as he makes his way on through. Well, he wasn't on the pace to change Carl McGirt, but a P2 he'll gladly take as he makes his way to the line. P9 overall as he weaves the line there. He's happy with that result, I can assure you of that. And then we will have Darren Orkett here making his way to the timeline ahead of what is Ollie Pimley. Pimley bringing home P3 in the gold class, and then it will be Chris Hitchin there who makes it P3 in the silver class. But meanwhile, where is he on circuit? Here he is. He has already crossed the line. We didn't catch him crossing the line, but he's done it, ladies and gentlemen. The British driver Darren Sharples has made it so. The curse is lifted on the bronze class lead. He's run this one from start to finish as your leader of the bronze class, no mistakes, and the 777 driver has taken the win in the bronze class. Well, with that, there's only one thing we can do, and that is it's time to take a look at those race results. So as we look to the results here, it is the case that after 40 minutes of racing at the Sandown circuit in Australia, Jonathan Hitchin taking that win overall by 0.4 of a second ahead of Carl McGirt. Oliver Fennell making it P3 and on the overall podium there on his debut ahead of Alistair Cook and Sam Congreve completing the top 5. Billy Bob Ray taking P6, our silver winner, a deserved P6 there for Billy Bob Ray, and he'll be very happy with that. That'll give him some major points in the overall championship standings ahead of Alex Hill, David Larson, Nathan Scott, and then Darren Orkett complete the overall top 10. But now let's look to those individual classes, and it is the case we start, of course, with the Platinum class, and it is Jonathan Hitchin who takes the win, of course, in the Platinum class, 9.3 seconds ahead of Oliver Fennell, and Alistair Kirk completes the Platinum podium with Sam Congreve and Alex Hill completing that top 5. Darren Orkett in a difficult day, P6 in the end. I think he would have felt as though he had a lot more pace to demonstrate, but that lap 1 incident really upsetting the rhythm of so many drivers, and Orkett finds himself right in the thick of it, with Stephen Kennedy finishing a lap down P7, Austin William Campbell P8, and it is the case it all went wrong right towards the end, indeed from the start, and after that recovery he just could not get to the finish without another incident. And then Damien Lobbett with that retirement very early in the race, finishing at P9, but I don't think that'll be classified given he retired after what was effectively 1 or 2 laps. But then we do look to our gold class by comparison here, and it is the case in the gold class, Carl McGirt taking that win emphatically by almost 50 seconds over Nathan Scott. To be fair, we've seen quite large margins, but that is a very large margin within the class, and Carl McGirt really on fire here today at Sandown. And well, Ollie Pimley completing the top 3 there of the gold class on that podium ahead of Stephen Masters and Nathan Foster. Alan Lever P6, a difficult day for Alan Lever. Joe Newman P7, Martin Till in P8, and Chris Edison in the end P9. And as we look to the silver class, meanwhile, in a class that did have a little bit less battling than it's typified to, but still they were battling with other classes, not within their own class. Billy Bob Ray in the end taking that win up by 13.5 seconds ahead of David Larson, who our championship leader, of course. He will now be at risk of potentially losing that lead to Billy Bob Ray, given Ray's performance here today. And Chris Hitchin completing the silver podium. A great drive there from the Symphony Esports driver, it has to be said, making it 2 Symphony Esports drivers on the podium. Tyson Melander P4, Ryan Williams P5, Matthew Rutledge P6, and Colin Patterson P7. And then in the bronze class, last but not least, it is the case, we shouldn't forget these guys, Darren Sharples taking his win. I believe that is his maiden win in the series, if I'm not mistaken. He's finally done it, 20 seconds almost ahead of Oscar Rocha, and James Connolly completes the bronze podium ahead of Mark Cadmore, Tom Farrell, and Kevin Burke. And given their early retirements, I'm not sure if they'll be classified for the purposes of points. But with that, how does this translate into the standings, you may ask? Well, let's take you through those standings, subject to stewards' inquiries, of course. We start with our top 20 overall, and it is the case that Jonathan Hitchin, with that win today, extends his lead. He's now on 112.5 points. He is a massive margin, it must be said, ahead of Carl McGirt there, who in P2, with that win in the gold class for that P2 overall today, has moved up to P2 in the overall championship. Well done to him. James Acklam and Nathan Foster joint today on 31 points, but Acklam ahead based on result count back, and then James Armstrong completes the top 5, with Sam Congreve, Darren Orkett, Cy Anthony, Will Mason, and Damien Lobbett completing the top 10. And note there, Orkett and Cy Anthony both on 22.5 points. It's result count back that keeps one ahead of the other. And then outside of the top 10, your main candidate trying to get into that top 10 of the overall, Alistair Kirk there, really finding his form with that switch to the BMW. Then in the Platinum class, it is the case that Jonathan Hitchin's championship lead only ever seems to be going one way, and it is up As we can see here, 115.5 points ahead of Stan Congreve's 38.5 points. But it is the case that Congreve now taking that P2 in the standings here today, and he'll be very pleased with that. Darren Orkett P3, and then James Acklam and Will Mason both on 35 points, joint there. Acklam ahead on result countback. Alistair Kirk P6 continues to build that momentum. He'll be targeting P4 in the championship come the end of next round. And then Damien Lobbett, Alexander Hill, James Armstrong and Austin William Campbell complete the top 10 with Stephen Kennedy only half a point out of the top 10 himself. In the gold standings, Carl McGuirk now leads here by what is 100.5 points to 85 points of Nathan Foster. That advantage of 15.5 points, it could go either way, round on round. And do keep in mind, of course, that Nathan Foster picking up some major points in the last couple of rounds. Today wasn't his day, but I think it may have been the case that the Porsche did not have the strength here. You can imagine that Nathan Foster will be coming back very strong next time out versus McGuirk, and it'll be a great rivalry between the two of them. And then best of the rest, Nathan Scott on 50.5 points, 4 clear of Joshua Pratt, Brian Davies in P5. Tillin, Constable, Lever, Newman and Pimley there make up the top 10, with Calvin Stewart a point behind Pimley in what is that P11 position and charging after the top 10. And then we come down to the silver class standings meanwhile. It is Billy Bob Ray who leads by 2.5 points ahead of what is Rob Armstrong, and Ray taking the lead of the silver championship for the first time this season. The pressure will be on him because it's normally been the Rob Armstrong show, but Rob Armstrong not attended today. It is the case that Billy Bob Ray now comes to at the firm. When I say it's been the Rob Armstrong show, that's a bit disrespectful to David Larson. It's been the Armstrong and Larson show, but now we have Ray also getting into the mix, and you can imagine that top 3. And with Tyson Valenda also only half a point off of the top 3, it's anybody's game between those top 4 right now. It could swing any way from round to round. Ryan Williams, best of the rest, ready in P5 and 48 points, only half a point clear of Colin Patterson. And then we have Hitchin, Becerra, McManus and Murray for completing the top 10 there, with Jason Orr a further 2 points behind on 16.5 points in P11. And then for our final group of standings, the bronze class, it is the case that Oscar Rocha continues to lead. Despite not bringing home the win today, he's leading on 111.5 points. Ahead of Darren Sharples, who is, I believe, unless my maths is mistaken, 18 points behind. And it is the case that Mark Johnson there, not in attendance today in that P3. But it does look as though the tide is turning, and Rocha's grip on the top of the standings maybe started to slip a little bit. But again, a difficult circuit here today. Could a more traditional circuit next week favour him a bit more? James Connolly, the best of the rest in P4, ahead of Mark Cadmore. And then we have Farrell, Murray, Kevin Wesley-Burke, Clark and Chapman completing the top 10, with Matthew Routledge in P11 there, a point off of the top 10. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all of our championship standings, provisional subject to Stewart's inquiries, and I think there might have been a few from today. So that means it's time to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you did enjoy tonight and you're not subscribed to the UK Sim Racing Twitch channel, then subscribe today. You know you want to. It is the case. We've had some fantastic racing here, and the championship is only going to intensify as we go on. But if you do want to know more about our community at UK Sim Racing, then you can check out our website, and it is the case, of course, we do have links to our affiliates there, and we've also got our Twitter. That's twitter.com/UK Sim Racing _. And speaking of our affiliates, firstly, a big thank you to our sponsor, Swally Omeda Sim Racing Coaching, but also a thank you to our affiliates of Race Anywhere and Demon Tweaks. And it is the case that if you visit any of their sites from our official webpage using our affiliate links, remember, any purchases you make, you'll get a discount on, and we'll get a kickback from, which we put into future series. And do check out all 3 there, whether you're looking for sim racing coaching, Race Anywhere being the provider, of course, of premier sim racing curated equipment, and Demon Tweaks there, whether you're looking for the most complete and innovative motorsport product range in terms of real-world motorsport, all the way down to sim racing. Demon Tweaks have got a little something for everyone. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our drivers to pack up their bags and make the way from Australia to the Hungaroring. They'll make the way back to continental Europe, a more traditional circuit that's just as much about technical complexity as it is about getting the power out of each and every corner. And that will be round number 8. The racing will happen on Sunday the 7th of August, but we'll bring you all the racing action as if it were live next Monday on the 8th of August. You'll want to be there. You won't want to miss it as the season continues into its second half. But until then, we've been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.